This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 8, Episode 3. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network of shows, brought to you by Mountain Man Medical. Today is Wednesday, January 25th, 2023, as of the recording of this episode. My goodness, it is a new year. We did one already, didn't we, Matthew?
Yes, we
I've already
did.
forgotten what year we were in. But speaking of which, I'm your host, Riley Bowman, and as you just heard a moment ago, we have co-host and producer Matthew Maruster also joining. Hey, dude.
Happy to be here with you, bro.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to do the podcast with you, my friend. Today, we're going to be doing a recap of the 2023 SHOT Show that we just recently returned from. And by all accounts, at least by appearances, I don't know. Matthew seems like he's doing pretty well health-wise.
Yeah.
And so far, I'm hanging in there. And so it seems that we escaped 2023 SHOT Show without coming down with the SHOT Show crud.
Yeah.
Unlike, I think I heard today during our daily meeting with our team that our social media manager, Mitch, sounds like he may be under the weather. And our videographer, video editor, video post producer, all that. Corey, I think, is a little bit under the weather. So some of us may have escaped unscathed, but not all.
Mm.
But today's episode is brought to you by CCW Safe, which is our choice for self-defense coverage, legal coverage in the event that you have to ever use a gun in defense, actually, or any lethal weapon for that matter. I don't know. Did you know that they will cover you not only if you use a gun, but for any weapon that you might use or any type of self-defense situation? Awesome guys. We got to connect with a few of them while we were there in Las Vegas at SHOT Show. So always a pleasure to see our friends over there at CCW Safe and see the good things they're doing. I know that they are doing some awesome things, including behind the scenes, always trying to make what the services they provide the best in the industry. And we certainly feel that way, which is why they are sponsors of this podcast. Podcast listeners, you can save 10% off a CCW Safe membership by using the coupon or the discount code CC Podcast. Also, Guardian Nation members of ours can save 20% with their special member-only discount available. And you can find that if you are a Guardian Nation member, you can find that in your member dashboard area. Today's episode also sponsored by the Guardian University, which is our online video and training library, repository of tons of video and training content, all within the concealedcarry.com and Guardian Nation family of training. Go check it out. Go to concealedcarry.com/Guardian University for a short link to get there. You can actually purchase access to Guardian University independently, I believe, but you can definitely get access, or you can purchase access to the different videos within that Guardian University and have them added to the Guardian University library that you can access yourself. So you can buy those independently, but Guardian Nation members get access to everything. So there's good reasons to be a member of Guardian Nation. Again, the link for Guardian University, concealedcarry.com/Guardian University. So today, as we mentioned, we wanted to do a recap on the 2023 SHOT Show. That ran last week. Tuesday through Friday are the official dates of the show. And then Monday of last week is what's known as the Industry Day at the Range, or Range Day. So we were able to participate in some of those things. Not all of us were able to make it. In fact, the Range Day was not very good weather at all. It was super windy and even got a fair amount of rain, including at one point that kind of drove everybody under cover, under tents and things like that. My timing was not so awesome. I arrived at the Range Day just before we'll call it a squall moved through. The winds kicked up, the rains came just pouring down. It fortunately didn't last terribly long, probably about 20 minutes or so, but I was able to get a little bit of time on the range and check out some new things and shoot some guns and whatnot. And then, but the reality is actually most of us are on the ground Sunday through Saturday. Some of our guys arriving in town on Sunday afternoon, and then we had to be ready to set up a booth at SHOT Show on Monday morning, and then most of our guys leaving Saturday, the following Saturday morning. And let's see, Jacob and I actually got there a little bit earlier. We were able to actually attend the 6 Hour Media Day event, which was great, a great event. Always a pleasure to be able to be a part of that. And it was the first time in a few years since SIG was not there last year at all. They still did not exhibit at the show officially, and my understanding is that's for the foreseeable future. But they do apparently plan to put on their own standalone media type event each year. But we were able to attend that, and yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of an overview of the show, if you will, an itinerary of sorts. We were exhibiting for the first time ever as a company. So we had a concealedcarry.com booth, and all of our different brands and companies that we are associated with, that we represent, were also represented in that booth. By that, Mountain and Medical, Range Tech Shot Timers, Ready Up Gear, Barrel Block, KSG Armory holsters, and also, which those are all brands that are part of the concealedcarry.com family of companies or brands, but also we represent EDC Belt Company, as well as Gunfighter Gun Oil. And I think that, yeah, that's everything that we had represented in that booth. So it's a pretty cool little setup. And overall, I think we had a great time at the show. It was different being on the exhibitor side as opposed to purely being on the media side, if you will, which is what we've traditionally done in the past. So, Matthew, what was kind of your overview, take, whatever general feelings about the show?
Yeah, like you said, it was a little bit different plan, a strategy, and feel because normally we're running around trying to get media for you guys, new products, and get videos and interviews and post those on social media. At the end of the day, when we get back to the house and try to get that content out to you guys. We didn't do that this year. And we're basically in the booth just trying to tell people about the products we have and that you guys probably know about many of them, but just it was just a different feel. I appreciate now those guys and gals that do that stand in the booth all SHOT Show, and so I have a different perspective. I respect that. But yeah, it was cool. It was good because comparing it to last year was a COVID year where everybody had to wear masks and they were going around making sure people had masks on and all that. This year there was none of that, and the numbers seem to be more similar to the years before COVID. So that was a good sign. It seemed like there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people and a lot of activity, and so that was good. I noticed that.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, in preparation for today's episode, did a little bit of digging on some statistics because that was something I wanted to know about. In fact, conveniently, I got an email earlier today from the NSSF, that's the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the organization responsible for putting on SHOT Show each year. And their email here actually had some quick statistics, which I thought, oh, well, that's pretty interesting. So let's go see how that compared to past years. And so total exhibit space, 816,000 square feet. That is a massive, massive show. And in fact, they say here that this is the largest event held at the Venetian Expo and Caesars Forum. Caesars Forum is this big add-on piece they've built next door to the Venetian Expo, and you actually access it by crossing a bridge from the Venetian Expo. The Venetian Expo, for those that maybe are a little bit more in the know, used to be known as the Sands Expo and Convention Center, but its name changed a year or two ago. But now combined with that footprint over at the Caesars Forum, add-on piece, this is a massive, massive event that I think the original SHOT Show before they added that piece was like around 700,000 square feet. So this, adds like another 120,000 square feet ish to the show. That's 18.7 acres. That's just, I mean, it's massive. And they say here, if you were to walk every aisle of the show, you would walk 13.9 miles. That's a fair bit. Now the reality is nobody probably, unless except for maybe the very first year I attended, I tried to do
Mhm.
that, which was quite a challenge in and of itself. But if you're like me and y- you go to the show and you're trying to hit all these different things, and you end up actually doubling back and recovering parts of the show again and again and again as you're trying to get things done and get from appointment to appointment or meeting to meeting. I know that just like looking at my steps counter on my smartwatch, there were days I did like, I think there was one day I did 17,000 steps, which I don't remember the exact mileage equivalent at the time, but it was a lot in one day, so it was pretty cool. So the curious thing here, what I wanted to know, Matthew, was this year's show, how, I mean, certainly, I mean, if traffic was way different this year than last year, right?
Hmm. Sure. Yeah.
I mean, noticeably so, right? I certainly noticed it. I tried to find attendance statistics for last year's SHOT Show, and I couldn't find anything. I think they've intentionally not published how many people were in attendance. But if I was going to guess, it felt like about half as many bodies, on the show floor. So this year they're saying that there were a little more than 52,000. Is that, yeah, more than 52,000 people that attended. Which actually, my memory, I could have sworn at one time I remember them saying there was 80,000 people. I don't know if this number is counting exhibitors or not, like the actual people in the exhibitor booths, or if that's just 52,000. Maybe it's 80,000 once you count all the people there actually working the show, as exhibitors and vendors and whatnot. Either way, it's a big show. And let's see. So the other question I was, well, how did that compare to pre-COVID times? And the 2020 show, which was the last pre-COVID show, had roughly 55,000 people in attendance, and 2019 had just over 60,000 in attendance. So 52,000 was pretty close to 52,000 was getting pretty close to pre-COVID times. Hey, Ghost Tactical joining us on YouTube says this was the best SHOT Show for me. He said 80,000 badges were issued, not necessarily how many were actually there. Oh, and that makes sense, true too. So the 80,000 number, that's probably what that is. That's how many badges were issued. There we go. That's why that probably stuck out in my mind, and that would include all your exhibitor badges and media people and also just attendees from various, because you got dealers that are going there as buyers, you've got international organizations, even you've got law enforcement, you got military and different agencies that are in attendance. So anyway, so the point was this it was really good to see. It kind of felt like the industry getting back to normal somewhat, if we even know what normal is anymore. But certainly the feel of the show was better than last year from an attendance standpoint, and certainly last year was nice for us from a media perspective because it was a lot easier to navigate the show and get places, and for people to give us of their time to either have meetings or to do media coverage because there wasn't as much demand from just the lack of bodies being present. But whereas we were attending this year as an exhibitor, it was really good to see that there was generally pretty good attendance.
Hmm. Yeah, and as far as like innovative wise or innovation or new releases and stuff, I think it's hard for me to say, compare it to years past because I wasn't seeking that stuff out as much this year. Um, it felt to me just anecdotally like that there wasn't like a lot of groundbreaking, earth shattering releases this year or anything that was, you know, I don't know, something that I just had to see. But again, that might be just there, and we'll talk about some of those products, but that were pretty neat. But that might just be because that wasn't my focus this year, as compared to years past. I don't know how you felt, but
Yeah, well, so obviously everyone's going to have a different take, based on what their personal focus or interest is. There were definitely some products I thought were pretty interesting and innovative. There were plenty of things that were kind of, yeah, it's the same old.
Hmm.
There, there wasn't any like new pistol release from like a concealed carry perspective that was like, oh wow, like got to get our hands on that. That's probably what I would say, right? There wasn't. I mean, there was a couple of things. There's a really interesting new gun from Rock Island Armory that's actually completely made in the U.S. in Cedar City, Utah. It's called a 5.0, and but it's not necessarily a concealed carry gun. I mean, I suppose you could, uh, but it's kind of an interesting thing. I got my hands on it. I didn't get to shoot it, unfortunately. They had left the range day by the time I could have gotten there, just probably because of weather. But got to handle it and check it out. It was pretty interesting. I'll talk maybe some more about that in a bit. Um, some
Pincus's gun,
yeah,
the
so
Avidity arms, that was neat.
yeah, I mean, it's neat because
It's finally come.
it's really hard for an independent entity, to just pop up and say, I'm gonna build a whole new gun from scratch. People are familiar with Hudson. In fact, we had him on the podcast quite a while ago, a couple years ago, and they did something really cool and unique and innovative, and popped up as a new independent company trying to build a gun company from scratch, and it in the end didn't it ended up not working out as they went out of business, as they just couldn't quite continue to sustain themselves. So Rob Pincus is the big driver behind Avidity Arms, and has been teasing for 6 years at least. I think he said the project started in 2014. I first remember hearing about it, I think, in 2017, and that it's a PD-10 pistol. And he brought by a production gun, in a case, and they are being made and supposedly shipping, I think, next month or the month after. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they can continue. I wish everyone the best of success, and so we'll see if they're able to keep trucking along. That's a tough thing to do. But now, 6, 7, whatever years later, finally coming to fruition, all these many hours of a lot of work, I'm sure, and a lot of development. It's, again, not an easy thing to do, but so I was cool to see. I'm with you there, absolutely 100%, because that I'm all about seeing more of that kind of thing, especially from smaller like independent companies. That's hard to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and Elke's asking, it's a great question, Elke. Difference between the Avidity Arms PD-10 and a Glock 48. They're very, very similar, I would say, in terms of like overall size and, like how it feels in the hand, how it would probably carry. I think I think you'd be hard pressed to tell the really difference between them, just from like a practical standpoint and like a carryability standpoint. They are different in that the PD-10 is a true single stack magazine gun. The 48 is kind of a pseudo double stack. It's a double stack if you can get the Shield Arms mags.
Hmm.
The Glock mags are more like a 1.5 stack, 1.5 stack. But um, if you're talking about a pure like stock Glock 48 configuration, I mean they're very similar in size and basically identical in capacity, because you're basically talking about 10+1 guns. Um, so I look at that and kind of go, well, it's a little bit behind the times. It's a gun that, had it come out in 2017, 2018, probably would have been a huge hit, because I think the market at that time was a different market, and people would have readily received that with open arms. I think coming out now in 2023 with a 10+1 gun that's Glock 48 sized, it's a lot different market. And everybody knows that the uh, you got the P365, even a P365 XL is greater capacity, but is smaller than the PD10. The P365X macro is probably similar in size. I think it's a little bit shorter in the overall slide length, but probably pretty similar in size. But it's 17+1 compared to a 10+1. It's like a true double stack gun. You've got even the Shield Plus now. It's a again, Shield Plus didn't exist in 2016, 2017. The regular Shield, 8+1, 7+1 gun, right in that ballpark. PD10 would have been, again, very competitive. So it's a different market. I think that there's some people that still like, that type of design, if you will, but it's not nearly going to be what it could have been if it had been released, say, 5 years earlier. Yeah, Nelke says that Rob mentioned his model was like a thin Glock 19. Yeah, yeah. Glock came out with the 48 soon after Rob was talking about his. I mean, so companies like Glock, companies like SIG, some of these companies, of course, SIG really turned the world upside down on its head. Was it 2017 when the P365 came out?
I think so.
I think
it
so
was
too.
17.
Yeah, it sounds about right. It's remarkable that one pistol can be such a game changer in the industry, and it has been, because they basically took a gun with the same capacity of a Glock 48 or Pincus's Avidity Arms PD10 10+1, but then made it a lot smaller, and then they're like, well, let's one up that, let's make it slightly bigger and now even more capacity, but still very small. And they've continued to expand on that P365 line, and now you've got guns like the X Macro that is still pretty compact and concealable from a carry perspective, but has the capacity and performance potential of more like a full-size gun. Like it's a very, very different world. And that all changed, back when the P365 was released. It's forced Smith & Wesson, it's forced Glock, it's forced, everybody to change and innovate, and redefine what was thought of as being kind of this. I think we'd gotten to this place where we thought that somewhere between an 8 and 10 round gun, like an 8+1, 10+1, somewhere in that ballpark, we kind of like, hey, that's a good concealed carry sized gun.
Right.
And that's no longer really the case anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. It was good to see. It's good to see him finally bring it to life, or bring it to market, after all the waiting. But I agree with your points. But I hope he does well with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us something else, Matthew, like observations about the show, things you thought were cool, whatever.
Yeah. So I'll go off on this one. And it's certainly possible that I didn't read the audience when I published a little post, before SHOT Show, telling our readership, of those that read, that we're going to be going to SHOT Show, and will we see you there? And some of the readers, you can't please everybody, and were a little upset with me. I'm going to be honest. They were upset with me. They were upset that SHOT Show was only open to, dealers and buyers and media, and it wasn't open to the regular public. The average Joe couldn't just walk in and see what was going on in there. And that wasn't the intention. The intention is always, to involve you guys, either, through the podcast or through readers. What do you want to see? What are things that you've heard in the industry that are coming out that you'd like us to go check out? And also, there are a lot of the readers and people that listen to the podcast, Guardian Nation members, that we know. We've seen them at different shows and things, that live out in Las Vegas, or go out and they're exhibitors or whatever, who are in Las Vegas. And we wanted to meet up with those people, because we value, those people that invest in our company and in us, and we want to invest back in them, and they're friends of ours. And so it was another way to say, hey, come out and see our booth, come out and see us. We're going to have a meet and greet, go get some dinner with you guys at this place and time. And so, so we did that. And I thought that was awesome because, in years past, as we went for the media, we didn't have like a home base where we could meet up with people, say, hey, come over to our booth. We'll be over there. Just when you have time, come over. It's sort of hit and miss. People are going to meetings and appointments, and it's really hard sometimes to nail people down. And so we had kind of a home booth or home base, and people could come by, and we got to see a lot of the people that make going to a show like this, you know, another layer of enjoyment, seeing people that you care about and that you like and you haven't seen for 6 months or a year, and then going out to dinner and with some of the Guardian Nation members that we linked up with and had dinner, and one of them brought their two sons. He brought his two sons, and we got to meet them. And it was just really cool to kind of get to hang out with people that might, read some articles of yours or listen to the podcast, or, and you finally get to meet these people and say, thanks for, supporting us. So that was a big highlight of mine at SHOT Show this year.
Yeah. Right on, dude. I agree. The meet and greet Wednesday evening last week, so a week ago tonight, was absolutely a highlight of the week. We had a handful of Guardian Nation members that came out and joined with us. We had some of our team. By that, not only just our guys that work for and with us, but also industry folks that we consider to be part of our family. So the folks from Throom, Erin and her dad and mom and their team that make Throom targets. They came out to dinner with us that same night, which was really cool. Very, very awesome to have them along with us. We had Todd Fossey was there, who's taught at our last two Guardian conferences. I think that was probably about it, but it was really, we had like 21 or 22 people in this just that took over this the back half of this small pizzeria in Las Vegas, which apparently, according to one of the folks from the Throom team, I can't remember which one said it, but they're from back east. They're like the New Jersey area, where they hopefully should know good New York style pizza, and said that this is the best pizza they've had west of the Mississippi.
It was good. It was really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. We had a good time. It was really good to see some of you folks. Some of you probably, whether you're watching right now, but certainly at some point, I know you'll end up watching or hearing this. But we saw a few of you, Frank and let's see, Dave and
Yep.
Trying to remember who all was there, but several of you there. It's good to see you all. Thanks for being there. Thanks for joining us for that small little meet and greet. Speaking of the show, as you mentioned, it is an industry show. And by that, like, you've got to work in the industry to be able to attend. And I know that sucks for those of you that would like to be able to attend, that don't necessarily work in the industry. But there are other shows, like the Great American Outdoor Show. That one is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania each year. And it's a large show that has a lot of the same companies that will be present. We will not be there. That's not one that we will be at. But the NRA show, which is in April, it's a very similar kind of thing. And so both those shows are wide open to the general public, as well as industry people. And you'll see media people there as well, both those shows. The one show that I think is still continuing to grow and expand is the Concealed Carry Expo, put on by the USCCA, which we've attended. So there's a few opportunities for you to come out to some cool big shows and see a lot of the same kind of stuff. But SHOT Show has been kind of this mecca, if you will, and historically it's where all the big releases would happen at. And one trend we've seen over the last few years, and I think has especially changed since COVID kicked off, is that more and more companies are starting to release products as they want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily tying it to a major show event like they used to. So there's less of the mystique, if you will, of surrounding SHOT Show like there used to be, in that, hey, that's where you want to be, because that's where the new cool stuff's going to be, released and talked about and on display. It's not quite that way so much anymore. We do see a little of that. There certainly are new things at the show. It's just not quite like what it used to be. So
Yeah.
I would say you're not, so those of you that are like, man, I wish I could attend, it still is really cool, but it's not quite, you're not missing out on as much as what you might have, years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Speaking of new products, Riley,
mm,
would it be appropriate to let the listeners know about our new product that we kind of debuted, our prototype?
sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a secret or anything, and I think we've alluded to it or talked about it a little here or there. But and we've said for a couple of years that we wanted to improve and upgrade the hardware for the Range Tech Shot Timer. But it is true, we had a non-working prototype at the show, which was really exciting. We really were trying to have a working prototype available for the show. That would have been even cooler. But there was a couple of things held up. Actually, I think it was one very critical component that I still don't think has shipped yet, to that was necessary to make that thing work. But we will have a working prototype here, hopefully very soon. But we were able to display a prototype of the case and kind of let you see what the screen looked like, the button layout, that kind of thing, where the speaker and the mic and all that are going to be on the new hardware unit. We're really excited about the Range Tech Shot Timer. It is something that we will be releasing later this year. I'm hoping for second quarter of the year, but don't hold me to that. Certainly, I think we're on track to be able to do that, but there's always a possibility that there'll be some setbacks. But yeah, we had that there. We displayed it. We showed some people it. Got some really favorable feedback about it. People were really excited about version 2 of the Range Tech Bluetooth Shot Timer, and yeah, it was really. I'll tell you, even just getting the non-working prototype in hand in time for the show. I think Jacob picked that up the morning of the day that he and I left and hit the road. So that was kind of last minute, and it was really, really cool to have in the hand and be able to. We've been talking about it and meeting with engineers and stuff. In fact, I was going back and looking at emails last night and noticed that some of the very first emails with some of the team that's involved on the development of the new timer unit date back to almost a year ago. So that's that gives you a sense that for a solid year now we've really been working pretty hard on that, and it's exciting to be to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you mentioned it, maybe you did, but if you didn't and you were wondering, one of the big changes to the timer for the Pro one, it's going to have a screen. So
Yep.
that for you that have been, that have the Bluetooth Shot Timer, you like it, but you wish it had a screen, there's going to be a Pro version coming with the screen shortly. So that'll be cool.
Yep. Yep. Yes, has a screen. It does. I can confirm. And the non-working prototype that we had on display had one of the actual screens installed in it. Just obviously couldn't power it up or anything. But yeah, that. So if you happen to see that, that's the screen. There's an overlay that will be over top, like a window, which was not quite installed yet on the non-working prototype, but it certainly gave people an idea about what that would look like.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, so that was pretty exciting. We got to display all of our different brands. Mountain Medical had a lot of interested folks checking out our very competitive, value priced, but name brand quality trauma kits from Mountain Medical. A lot of people interested in that, and it was interesting actually seeing that in that space, in that trauma kit. I don't know if you call that an industry, but in that space, we're very, very competitive. And that's intentional. We've tried very hard to have affordably priced but nothing but quality trauma kits available to the masses with Mountain Medical. So that was cool. A lot of people got to see, we've had them for like a month or so, but new packaging for the KSG Armory holsters. But people got to see that on display and kind of what that would look like if you're, and I would hope that at some point in the relatively near future, you may see at a local dealer KSG Armory holsters hanging on a rack or on a shelf somewhere in our, new, very, very nice packaging. So that was pretty cool to have
Yep.
that on display. Let's see. A lot of people, interested in a lot of, well, like we got here's the thing. Ready Up Gear is our brand that kind of is a bunch of these different shooting and range type accessories. Doesn't quite get the love it probably deserves. There's some really cool products from Ready Up Gear, and we had a lot of that on display there. And I mean, it's all kinds of things, right? Like even down to the rechargeable batteries that we have. I mean, we've got AAAs and AA's available. We've got 18650s and 16340s, and and all you need is a micro USB cable to plug those in and recharge them. Like you don't need to keep track of a separate battery charger or that kind of thing. They're really super awesome and convenient. We had those on display. We had, our hearing protection products, the Roger 22s, the soft seals. That continues to be a hit amongst people. People really like the silicone gel filled. It's an add-on product that you can add on to your Roger 22 Ear Pro, but also we have them so that you can fit them to. We've got them available for walkers, for most of your walkers, over the ear protection muffs. Also Peltors, some of the models of Peltors, and also Howard lights, which are a pretty popular one as well. And so people continue to really like those. Some cleaning kits and other different things. It was overall was really cool. We also had some concealedcarry.com stuff, products there, some of our video products. But one thing that was kind of cool to me was to talk to one gentleman that was interested in possibly, ordering some targets from us. And of course, last year we debuted the CCI PIQ target, which is a target of my design that I've worked on for some time. And we were able to find a company that could print them for us in large quantities for a reasonable price. And of course, they're available on the site. And one guy that represents some large agency interests was like, I'd like to get some targets from you. So we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Yep.
So yeah.
And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Glock's groundbreaking release of their new trigger.
Well, yeah. So let's get into the products then. So what are some of the products and things we saw? Well, you brought up the first obvious one. And I should say that what happened at this show is that Glock officially debuted the Glock 47 MOS to the public. It was available for some time. It's an agency gun. I believe it's the gun that the Border Patrol was essentially responsible for. Basically went to presumably. Well, I think what happened is that they put out an RFP, request for proposals, saying we want a new service pistol, and Glock. And they had some specific things they wanted to see in that. Glock happened to be the winner of that, and from that was born the Glock 47 MOS, which is basically the way to think of it is the simple way to think of it is it's like a Glock 45, a Gen 5 product, but with a Glock 17 length slide. So the Glock 45 is, it has a long grip like a Glock 17, like a full size Glock, but it has the shorter slide configuration similar to a Glock 19. The Glock 47 basically is that, but just with the Glock 17 length slide. So it has the shorter dust cover, of like what you would find on a Glock 19 frame, but has the full length grip of a Glock 17 along with the full length. It's a 4.5 inch barrel of the Glock 17. And that's the Glock 47, and it's MOS, so optics ready. And so that was officially debuted as available to the general public model option, not just an federal agency level purchase. And along with that you referenced is the new Glock Performance trigger. And that was actually kind of interesting to me because, well, I mean, typically, I think this is the first real product that Glock has brought to market that's not a gun. It's an
Yeah.
accessory for a gun.
Right.
It's an after. It's not aftermarket in that it's made by Glock, but it's a trigger that you can then replace the factory trigger with, and it's made by Glock. And I got that confirmation. I was talking to Shane Coley, who is their team captain of Team Glock, and I've known Shane for a few years now. And we've shot some of the same big matches together. And I was like, "So tell me, Shane, like, are you guys having somebody make this trigger for you, or is this a true Glock product?" He says, "No." He's like, "Our philosophy at Glock is we want everything to be made by Glock. Anything that we're selling, it's made in house. I think they feel that they can control quality and all that a lot better by doing so. And I think that's a really smart move. So it is a Glock made performance trigger. They've never done anything like that before. Did you get your hand? Did you go try it?
Yeah, yeah, I did. And by performance, I know that means a lot to different, means different things to different people. We're not talking about like um, a competition trigger with, really light. Essentially it's the same. If I'm correct, it's still around 5 pound trigger, right? It's a flat shoe instead of the rounded. I mean, internally it's different, but it feels a lot better. It does away with like the traditional, the Glock trigger, that spongy kind of feel. It was definitely, you would definitely feel a difference in it, but it's not something that is like you could carry. What I'm trying to say is you could use it for EDC. It's not, just for a competition type trigger.
Hmm. So it is a reduced trigger weight,
Oh,
and
okay.
it depends on which connector you install in the gun.
Got it.
I think the standard configuration is for 4.5 pounds.
Mm,
This is according to their website, by the way. I had to pull it up. Um, I was asking the question at the booth, and I think it's so new that some of the people there didn't quite have all the specs available. I know that Shane Coley, talking to him, he's like, "Well, if I use a minus connector," and I think he even said he didn't even have to do a whole lot of polishing. He was getting down close to 3 pounds.
oh wow.
Glock on their website says if you're using the Glock connector 2, it's a 4.1 trigger. If you're using the standard Glock 5, Gen 5 connector, it's a 4.5 trigger pull, 4.5 pound trigger pull. And again, with the minus connector, it sounds like it's a bit less than 4 pounds. So yeah, so that, I mean, it's a lower trigger pull weight.
Mhm.
Um, there's still a wall, um, but I'd say it's not quite as defined as what you would be used to with a factory trigger. I actually quite like it, and I know I'm an odd one with respect to this because some people, really like a real crisp trigger wall. Uh, I want as little wall as possible. And I know that's strange to some people. And I say this is true for like striker fired guns primarily, because like basically what I want is it can be just about any length. I don't want it to be super long, but I'm not overly concerned about trigger pull length. I just, or even so much the weight, although I like triggers in the 3.5 to 4 pound range. I just want it to be like a button that I push and make the gun go bang when I want it to go bang. Now, if it's a nice 1911 or 2011 type gun, or anything that's like a true single action, then I like a good, crisp, and yet still light trigger for those types of applications. But for me, I like a lot of my striker fired guns to operate similar to a double action only revolver, but really, really smooth, really smooth. I mean, I like smooth, relatively light, um, decent travel distance is okay. Okay. Uh, I I just want as little interruption to this action. Once the trigger finger starts moving, if there's a wall, if I hit this really hard thing and I have to push through it, like that's fine, I'll do it. But like if the less of that there is, the more freely this thing can just do its work. So that's kind of what I like. And for me, the Glock Performance trigger feels like a smooth, kind of double action type trigger, but not overly heavy. And so it's very, very usable, very easy to shoot accurately with and quickly with. And that's ultimately what I like to see in a gun like this. So I got to shoot with the Glock 47 MOS at the range on Monday of last week with the performance trigger in it, and I shot, I think it was a Glock 45 right before that was with just a standard factory trigger. Very noticeable difference between them for me. I could shoot both guns just fine, but I definitely had a preference for the performance trigger. So if I was getting a Glock, or if I used a Glock or carried a Glock, and I'd be okay, personally speaking. I mean, everyone has to make this kind of decision for themselves. I'd be okay with this for like a carry gun, especially if it's like a 4 to 4.5 pound trigger. I'd have no qualms about that whatsoever. Making it a little bit smoother and easier to fire the gun, I see no problems with that. But make those decisions for yourselves. I see that Elke said that he has ordered one based on my review last week. I just posted a short little kind of reel on my social media, showing me shooting the Glock Performance trigger in the 47, and said, I like it, shoots good. It's nothing crazy, but it's pretty cool. I wouldn't say it's as good as like some people asked me this, but doing a little bit more reflection and research on this, it's not quite as good, I'd say, as the Timney trigger. I don't have a ton of, I've only pulled the Timney trigger a little bit. I think you can get a little bit better trigger characteristics with the Timney, but I wouldn't say it's, that Timney trigger is a pretty expensive trigger. So I guess, make your decision there of what's most important to you. Do you want the absolute best? Then get the Timney. And of course, if you can get that to run reliably, because those are kind of hit or miss sometimes, depending on the Glock you put them in, and depending on how well, I don't know. I've just heard all kinds of stories about people having some issues with Timneys in the Glocks. So there you go.
I know you were interested in the new pistol from Canik. That was something that you...
Yeah. So, and this was a bit of a surprise. So this was, I think, something that kind of was like, I mean, there was some social media posts and some press release type information a few days before the show. But it was kind of out of the blue. And that was the new steel frame Canik Rival pistol. It's known as the Rival S, the S for steel frame. And it's nice. I mean, I'll tell you, so, and I know Niels Jonasson, who's Canik's professional sponsored shooter. I've shot with Niels, actually squatted with him a couple of times. He's a great guy and, of course, an amazing shooter. 2022 was the year of Niels. He won pretty much every national championship event that he entered, which is just a phenomenal thing. I don't think anybody's won as many events in a single year except for Rob Latham. And even that, I think Niels beat Rob in that category in terms of number of national championships in a single year. And the Canik Rival, which is Niels' baby, he worked together with Canik to design the Rival pistol, which is based off of like their SFX type guns, but it's a little bit different and is definitely competition oriented. That's the gun that Niels won everything was with the standard Rival pistol. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, boom, hey, we have a steel frame version. And I definitely want to check that out. And it is an impressive little gun. It's heavy too. And that's the whole idea, right? So I actually mentioned in the show description that maybe we would talk about some of the trends for 2023. And so one of those trends, Matthew, and this Canik Rival S is a part of that discussion, is that we're starting to see this trend where full-size guns, more and more companies are wanting to come out with heavier versions, or at least metal framed versions of typically guns that already exist. Again, I got to say that SIG is kind of the innovator driver, in that respect, by a couple of years ago releasing the X5 Legion, which was with their proprietary patented technology that is tungsten infused polymer. So it's still a polymer injection molded grip module, but it's got tungsten infused in it, and it's heavy. And I've been shooting an X5 Legion for a few years now competitively, and it's a great gun. And I love the weight, frankly. I think, my gun's right around 42 and a half, 43 ounces. It's a great weight. I like the way it feels. I like the way it shoots. I don't know that I'd want heavier than that necessarily. And I could certainly shoot guns lighter than that, but it's a really, really good balance for me, especially from a competitive aspect. And I've also carried a P320 with the tungsten grip module. And I'm okay with that. I have no problem. I'm a big guy. I can carry a 43-ounce gun. It doesn't really matter much to me. But anyway, so that was kind of, I think, the kicker. And now you start to see, so what's happened is a few companies have started to do similar things. You see CZ now, has come out with larger and heavier framed models of their Shadow 2 guns. You got the A01, A01LD stuff from CZ Custom. So, got companies that are making guns that are 50 ounces and heavier. You got earlier, or just late last year, Smith & Wesson released their competitor version of their M&P pistol, which was metal framed. But again, I think they've missed the boat there. We did a whole episode. Well, we didn't do the whole episode on that, but we spent a good time talking about it because it's metal framed. And I picked that up for the first time at SHOT Show, that competitor pistol, and I'm like, oh, looks nice, feels nice, but why they decided to make it about as light, or even possibly an ounce lighter than their polymer framed, version of that same gun, is still beyond me, because I think the trend is to go heavier, not maintain same weight or lighter. And then Canik certainly reaffirms us in that line of thinking by coming out with their steel frame version, right? So whether you folks are competitive shooters or not, competition, the competitive shooting sports in particular, are drivers of innovation in the gun manufacturing community, in the industry. So you got actually a whole new division that USPSA is looking at creating, known as limited optics, basically to the idea to allow pretty much any gun, including single action guns like 2011s and that type, like a staccato type pistol, or a Springfield Prodigy even could fit into the limited optics category. Put an optic on it. And you can have a heavy gun, you can have a magwell, all this stuff, right? So we're going to see some interesting trends continue to develop, and that whole division has been created as a response to more and more people becoming interested in double stack 1911 and 2011 design guns, such as staccatos, such as the Springfield Armory Prodigy, and so forth. And so and this has been the case for the industry for a long time. Competition breeds innovation. Further innovation also then sometimes is a feedback loop back into the competitive world. Well, okay, now people have really run with that and created this whole other animal. Now, how are we going to address and fit that within our rule sets in the competitive shooting community? So IDPA has made some adjustments again in their rules. They're actually becoming even more like open armed, like welcoming to like the carry optics division in IDPA is kind of like their open division equivalent as open division in USPSA. So lots of interesting things there. But the Canik Rival S, here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. I know I just spent a bunch of time talking. That is a steel frame gun. Traditionally, steel frame guns are a lot more expensive than polymer framed guns to make, right? That gun's MSRP is $949 for a steel frame, what they call their chromed version. So it's a lighter color. Their dark finished version, their blued whatever I don't know what they call it, but their dark version is $8.99 MSRP for a steel frame pistol. It's striker fired, but the trigger on it's awesome, and it comes with a holster. It comes with a bunch of mags. It comes with all the optic plates you possibly could think or want for basically all of the popular optic options. So whatever optic you want to put on it, I mean, it comes out of the box ready to go. I think it even comes with a mag well. So a removable mag well. So that is it's a ready to go gun out of the box, ready to compete with out of the box in a number of divisions. Leave iron sights on it, go shoot production division. No mag well. Run some standard capacity mags, no more than 10 rounds in them. Production division gun. Run the competition mags that comes with it. No mag well. Put an optic on it. Shoot carry optics. Want to shoot this new limited optics provisional division? Put a mag well on it. Optic on it. Full capacity mags, whatever. Go shoot limited optics. I mean, and they also had some display guns sitting there in the booth as well that had frame mounted optic mounts. You could add a compensator onto that gun, frame mounted optic, go shoot open division. I don't, and as Niels proved in 2022, I think the gun is becoming less and less important as far as like, do you have to have a true open division 2011 style gun to compete in open division? Probably not, because for a long time people thought you had to compete with a 2011 or a double stack 1911 in limited division to be competitive. And Niels won limited nationals last year with a Canic polymer framed in 9mm shooting minor power factor. So like anyway, he's obviously a beast, and that's not everybody, but it just goes to show that you put in the work. It's you that matters, in terms of performance, not as much the gun. The gun is certainly, an important part of the, it's a tool and an important one at that. But anyway, really, really crazy. Man, if you had asked me to throw a price out, I'd been like, probably $11.99, $12.99, somewhere in there for those steel framed Rival S's. Then Niels told me, he's like, no, this one's $8.99 and that one's $9.49. What? That's crazy. I can barely buy a X5 Legion for that. With not nearly, all the accessories and components and add-ons and not being steel framed. And it's just like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah. So I think this year is going to, in terms of the competitive shooting sports, 2023. So 2022 was the year of Niels, and I think he's still going to continue to be dominant in the shooting sports. Last year was Niels' year. This year will probably still be his year too, but this year is going to be Canic's year. I think we're going to see those guns sell. They're going to sell a lot of them, and we're going to see a lot of those being used at competition events, and that's probably going to translate also into, what regular folks are, because that's always the case. The one reason why 320s have become as popular as they are, and 365s have become as popular as they are, is because Max Michel was dominant for so many years shooting a P320. So Beretta's starting to make a comeback because JJ had a couple of pretty solid years, pretty dominant years in a couple divisions, and we're starting to see, Beretta is a little bit more relevant again. Canic is going to become hugely relevant because people are going to see, one of the top shooters in the game running a Canic pistol.
Cool.
Some other things. Let's see. We're kind of. I just looked at the time. I'm like, oh wow. Elke said the new M17 optic from SIG. This is an optic that they've designed to basically fit the military contract gun, the MHS gun, the M17, M18 guns. It is a fully enclosed emitter optic that is supposed to be really robustly built. I unfortunately did not get a chance to actually lay hands on it. I've reviewed the specs on it. It looks like a really solid little optic. Just think that it's basically an Aimpoint Acro P2, but made by SIG. All right. That's basically what it is, or at least the concept of it. Let's see. Connor wanted to know if I got to check out the DR920L. I did. I didn't get to shoot it. I did handle it. You know what? Shadow Systems is making some really cool stuff these days. and they've got a bunch of variations now, which is kind of interesting to me. Uh, it's kind of the Sig Sauer model. It's like you can get any kind of gun model version configuration thing that you wish. They pretty much are offering it now over their Shadow systems. Looks like a solid gun, Connor. I mean, that's basically their Glock 34 sized version. Um, so yeah, I think people are going to be shooting those in competition. It's going to be a great gun, I'm sure. Pretty cool. Let's see. Yeah, Elke commenting back on the Glock performance trigger based on Timney's design. Yeah, I would say so. It's based on that design. It basically takes your Glock. The Glock performance trigger basically takes what has up to this time been a half-cocked striker in Glock pistols and makes it fully cocked. So up till now, every time you press the trigger on a Glock, you're finishing cocking the striker the rest of the way, and then it releases it. And the new performance trigger keeps that striker fully cocked. So all it's happening is it's just releasing it, which honestly is the more common approach. That's how 320s work. That's how XDs work. That's how the MMPs work. Most striker fired guns are fully cocked. And there was one other thing I wanted to comment on, Matthew. Brad here. Most recent comment on Facebook, Smith & Wesson has that new 10mm is metal frame. Yeah, so they're taking that same metal frame that they basically are using for that competitor gun and putting other stuff on it. So 10 millimeter. Yep, cool, got it. I know that 10 millimeters become like a more of a thing all of a sudden in the last couple of years. That is continues to be a trend. And the other trend that I've seen is more companies really diving into the idea of pistols chambered in 5.7 by 28. Which I don't really get, but that's okay. It's cool. I'm cool with options. For a long time, we basically had the FN7, right? And cool, whatever. And then Ruger all of a sudden comes out with one a couple of years ago, and people are like, "Oh wow, the 5.7 is relevant again." And now you're seeing, Smith & Wesson has come out with something similar. And so, 10 millimeters trending, 5.7s and pistols trending. All right, cool, whatever. I think 10 millimeter is cool. I don't need one necessarily. Maybe one day I'll have one, but yeah, whatever. It's cool. I got nothing against them.
It's one more than 9. That's what I tell Brad.
One more than 9. That's right.
It's one more than 9.
It's interesting because the 40 has all but died on us, as a service duty caliber. And instead, in its place, what it originally was, where it originated from, the 10 millimeter, we see the 10 millimeter kind of resurging a little bit. I think there's a lot of people are interested in using 10 millimeter for hunting purposes, and that's part of it. But there's also some people that seem to want to carry them, and that's fine. I don't get it. I think it's overkill. I think it's unnecessary. I think you're beating yourself up and making, it harder for you to I don't know. I have no desire to carry a 10 millimeter for defensive purposes. But you do you, and I'm happy to have options. So those are the trends. We're continuing to see everything is offered in optics-ready platforms. We continue to see more heavy guns, steel frame guns become a thing, and we see 10 millimeters and 5.7s trending. But there's one other thing we haven't touched on, Matthew. I don't know if you got the chance to take a look at them, but how about optics-ready revolvers?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw you you shot at range day, and you seemed to like it. It was pretty neat. It's innovative. Like I think it's a good idea. And revolvers are coming back, and so it makes sense to put it like a little modern spin or bring them up, modernize them. I don't know if that's the right term, but yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as just like the next evolution, the next step. A few years ago, hey, optics-ready semi-automatic pistols starts becoming a thing. Every manufacturer starts offering that, even standard from the factory, right? So what else are we going to put optics on? We'll put optics on all the things, including revolvers. And so Taurus was the big, that was the big thing at this year's show was Taurus showing up with optics ready. It's their 856 model and their 605 model. They're both basically your 38 caliber revolvers. The 856 being a 6-shot, the 605 being a 5-shot. I believe that are those available in 357? I can't recall, and that doesn't really matter to me either way. But yeah, ready from the factory with a plate, ready for an optic. You can put like a 507K on there, or 407K, a Shield RMSC, any number of these optics now that are starting to be made kind of with that same. It's the old like Doctor Optic Mini, which is the RMSC footprint is basically what it is. So, yeah, pretty cool. I shot it. I think why not? It's cool. I like dots on guns. And I also don't mind revolvers, even though I've been a semi-auto man for a long time. The last year, I've spent a little bit more time getting familiarized again with revolvers. I bought a Model 15. That's been probably 9 months ago. I bought a small Smith & Wesson 442. And been shooting them and getting more familiar with revolvers. And trying to like find what is the case to be made for a revolver. I think they're still relevant. I don't think they're highly relevant in today's world, but I think there's a place for them. It's a niche place, but hey, there should be a place for them to play, and we shouldn't judge or discriminate, and they should be able to get optics too. So Caleb Giddings over at Taurus, who they're recently hired as of a few months ago, director of marketing, I think is his position title. That's a big thing for him. He's been playing with optics on revolvers for a few years, and they made it a priority to come out with an optics ready revolver. So pretty cool. Other interesting things from Taurus. They also have their TX22 pistol in a compact version. That was their new thing at the show. Solid little gun. Shot that as well. I have more of the full size TX22. It's been a great 22 long rifle semi-automatic pistol. Frankly, I would send people to that before I'd send you to a Glock 44. Just in terms of like performance and reliability. Yeah, it's a great little gun. And Taurus, I know, continues to innovate and they want to change their improve upon their reputation. They've earned a bad, and rightfully so, a bad reputation for not having super awesome quality for a number of years now.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been trying to change that, and I think that they're starting to turn that. I think they have turned that corner. The rest of the industry is going to be slow to recognize that. From what I've been seeing thus far, I've tested their G3, the G3C, GX4. They've all been performing very reliably. The TX22, these new revolvers. Talking to Brian Eastridge, our buddy over at EDC Belt Company, and also host of the Off Duty On Duty podcast. He's saying their revolvers they're making, they're putting out, and the way they're making them and building them, that they're solid, that they're a lot better than they used to be. And I also spent some time talking to one of their engineers at Taurus, about that a little bit and asking him from his point of view, because he's worked for a lot of different companies through the years, what he thought about these changes that have been implemented and his view on that. And I'm not going to spend any more time getting into the details of that, but I was actually quite impressed after my conversation with this engineer that has worked for FN, that has worked for, I think he said Smith & Wesson. I think, trying to think, there was another company he said he worked for, but works for Taurus, and super impressed with what they're trying to do to improve quality and reputation. One thing that was interesting to me, I'll just share this one bit. This was really interesting to me, Matthew. So he said that at one time that a lot of stuff from Taurus was hand fitted. To it, like it was basically ready to go, but there'd be minor hand. And this is probably true of a lot of guns that are made in the industry, honestly, with a few exceptions. But here's the thing: is like even with some of the parts that didn't necessarily need to be hand fitted, like they had employees on assembly lines that sometimes would like buff things and polish things a little extra here, a little extra there, just because they kind of felt like it. Um, and so, like, I'm sure that some of those employees are well-meaning, but what that leads to is a lot of inconsistencies. And you get reports from consumers that are like, "Well, my gun had a super awesome trigger. Oh, mine sucked." Like, well, of course you're going to have those kind of inconsistent reports if you have inconsistent processes behind the scenes where some guns are getting a little extra love and some aren't at all. And
Hmm.
so that was actually, he's like, we're changing that completely, that approach. And of course, they've moved more manufacturing to the States here as well. So just interesting to hear some of that and get a little bit of a understanding behind the scenes of what, some of the processes they've tried to improve upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
think the last thing though, did you by chance check out that 5.0 pistol from Rock Island Armory?
I didn't. Nope.
So this one was really interesting. We're out of time, but I don't know what niche it really fits or fills, other than probably more of a competition one. But it's an all metal gun. Has a different action type than like most semi-automatics we see these days are either like a 1911 style or a Browning style, action that locks and unlocks. This one is very, very different. It actually has a locking block at the near the front of the barrel, and through the means of as the slide cycles, this locking block kind of like cams down and out of the way. Um, a very, very interesting, very unique design. I thought it was pretty interesting. I again don't know what it means or where it's going to go or what it'll turn into, if anything, but something that was kind of out of everything I saw, probably the most innovative as far as like handguns go that I've seen in a while. Very interesting, very unique, very different. The barrel in that doesn't like it basically remains. It moves a little bit to the rear and then back forward again during cycling, but it doesn't tilt and it doesn't rotate either. So it's just it's not a fixed barrel. So that's what was kind of interesting about it. So the mechanism that it works by is kind of unique and intriguing. Um, there was something else popped in my head. Oh, the Beretta 80X Cheetah. That was the other thing I got my hands on. Didn't get to shoot it. Little, it's like a micro version of the Beretta 92, but chambered in 380 auto. Um, Pretty cool little gun. Had a really nice double action trigger and single. It's a DASA, gun. Anyway, there you go. I think there's probably other things, but I think I got it all out as far as I could recall.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know we're pressed for time here. I just wanted to give one shout out to our friend Sarah Joy Albrecht. We did an interview with
Mm,
her here on the podcast.
yep.
She's the founder of Hold My Guns um, organization, and it was cool to see her. And she had a booth there for the first time. Lots of traffic going over there with people donating things and just her organization helping people, secure their guns properly, in crisis mode, places where they can take their guns and stuff. It was good to see that as well and see her organization doing so well at the show as well. So I just wanted to throw that. That was a big highlight of SHOT Show for me too.
Yeah. It was really good to see her. She is a wonderful, wonderful person. And if you missed that episode, go catch that one. A couple months ago, we did that interview with her, talking about her organization, Hold My Guns. Great, great organization, great mission, wonderful, wonderful human being, and it's really, really good to see her.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well, we had a great time at SHOT Show this year. Again, it was different seeing it from the exhibitor side of the show as well. Honestly, it felt like we we would have been happy to see a little bit more traffic come our way of our booth, but we were in the very, very bottom level where some people jokingly refer to it as the dungeon or the basement. Hopefully, we can get a little bit better position next year, assuming that we do get a booth again. I think we will. But other than that, it was honestly I thought it was pretty great, and we had a lot of great people that stopped by, and we thank all those of you that did stop by. We had visits from Mickey Shook, Brian Eastridge. You just mentioned Sarah Joy. She came by. We had John Correa that stopped by. We had Jim Harmer
Goat.
from Backfire YouTube channel.
Yeah. Ghost Tactical came over.
Yep. I missed him, but
Rob Pincus.
yep. And there was a bunch of others that stopped by and took. Oh, Michael Bain came by, did a little video there. So really, thank you. Big thanks to all those of you that did come and see us at the show, and those of you that followed some of our content and also this podcast. So we thank you. Couldn't do what we do without your support. And one final shout out to our sponsors that make it also possible to do what we do. Today's sponsors being CCW Safe. CCWSafe.com is where you can find them. And Guardian University. Go to concealedcarry.com/Guardian University. And so with that, Matthew, final goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
And so until next time, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.